Welcome, traveler of dreams. Tonight, you are invited to drift into the mists of memory and myth. Let your body relax and let your breath slow. This is your time to rest. In this gentle sleep story, we journey to Aztlan, the legendary homeland of the Aztecs. A place of shimmering waters, sacred caves, and ancient whispers. A paradise not lost, but carried in the hearts of those who remember. Find a comfortable position. Close your eyes if you haven't already. Let the world fall away, and allow the story to guide you into the island of mist and memory. Long ago, beneath a sky kissed by twilight and crowned with drifting stars, there lay an island cradled by silken waters, Aztlan, the place of white herons. Shrouded in mist and shimmering with the glow of forgotten dreams, Aztlan was said to float gently upon a great lake, its shores ever shifting, as if the land itself was woven from the fabric of dreams. Around it, the 7 caves stood like ancient sentinels. Hollowed chambers of obsidian and pearl, believed to be the sacred wombs from which the first people, the ancestors of the Mexica, had once emerged. Here, the air was perfumed with blooming cacao, sweet river reeds, and the crisp scent of stone after rain. Music drifted without beginning, without source, soft flutes and hollow drums that played themselves in the breeze, as though the wind carried memory in every note. Time in Aztlan moved like a feather upon water, slow, rippling, nearly imperceptible. Each day, the sun would rise like a golden serpent from the east, scales glittering in gold, casting long rays across the jade-green waters. And at night, the moon would drift above like a mother's gentle eye, watching the dreams of all who slept beneath her silver gaze. The people of Aztlan lived in harmony with the water and the sky, their homes nestled among wide-leafed palms and flowering trees that whispered secrets to the night. Their days were filled with quiet rituals. Offerings of flowers to the lake, dances performed in silence, and stories told only at dusk, when the colors of the sky mirrored the colors of the soul. And among them lived a young dream seer named Itzel. She was born under a moon-ringed eclipse, her eyes the color of twilight water. The village elders often said that the stars had braided her spirit with ancient threads, that she could hear what others could not. Even as a child, Itzel would stop and tilt her head to the side, listening to something far away, the humming of stones, the breath of trees, the heartbeat of the lake. By the time she was 13, she was already called Nawatli, the listener. And yet, her dreams held something the elders could not explain. Each night, she would slip quietly into sleep, and in her dreams, she would walk a path made of light, soft glowing petals falling beneath her feet with every step. There were no voices in these dreams, only feeling, a gentle call like distant birdsong. And always, the feeling of movement, not in place, but in time. A journey, one not yet taken, but already remembered. Her waking hours were filled with a longing she did not understand. She would stare across the still lake to where the mist thickened into silver clouds, wondering what lay beyond. No one ever sailed past the mist. The elders taught that Aztlan was the world entire, that there was no beyond. But each cell felt otherwise. She knew otherwise. One evening, as the sun dipped low, painting the sky in copper and rose, each cell sat alone at the edge of the lake, her bare feet just touching the cool water. The wind whispered through the reeds like a lullaby, and a white heron glided silently above her, its wings barely stirring the air. She closed her eyes, and the lake began to speak. Not in words, not in voice, but in vibration, like a hum that rose from the water and entered her bones. Her breath slowed. Her heartbeat matched the rhythm of something vast and old. In her mind's eye, she saw a vision, 7 glowing paths, each leading from a different cave, all converging into a single spiral of light. At the center was a doorway, round, rimmed with flame, but calm, pulsing gently like a living heart. It drew her toward it. She opened her eyes to find the heron had landed nearby, standing still as a statue. Its gaze was deep and unblinking. She felt as if it had been waiting for her, as if it had always known. That night, as the village lay beneath a sky heavy with stars, each cell lay awake in her woven hammock, listening to the soft drips of water from the eaves. Her mother slept nearby, her breath steady and calm, the way stone breathes in the rain. But each cell could not sleep. The dream still burned behind her eyelids. She whispered a prayer to the moon. O Mother of the night sky, who sees without judging, guide my steps. Let me understand what I carry within me. Let the journey speak. A soft breeze swept through the room, carrying with it the scent of white copal smoke. It curled like a serpent through the air and drifted across her brow, cool and sweet. She felt herself slipping, not into sleep, but into stillness, into that in-between place where dream and waking blur, where time forgets itself. In this stillness, she found herself again at the lake. Only now the water had turned to glass, and she walked upon it as if upon solid ground. Beneath her feet, ancient symbols glowed, spirals, hands, feathers, stars. She followed them toward the center of the lake, where a great stone lotus opened like a mouth, revealing a spiral staircase that descended into light. She began to walk. Downward, inward, into the quiet. Each step echoed like a heartbeat. Step by step, she descended into the memory of the land. The light around her shimmered with color, blues and purples and golds that didn't exist in waking life. She could feel stories in the air, like petals drifting around her, some old as mountains, others yet to be told. At the bottom of the spiral, she reached a chamber unlike anything she'd ever seen. A great dome of stone pulsed with slow, golden light. In the center, a pool of water perfectly still, reflecting not her image, but the sky of another world, stars that moved in spirals, moons that sang. And there, beside the pool, stood an old woman dressed in feathers and mist. Her voice was soft as woven cotton. "You remember the path," she said, "though you have not yet walked it." Etzel could not speak, but she understood. "You come from the womb of Aztlan, but you do not belong only here. The dream has called you. The lake remembers you. The stars await you. The path will open when you are ready to leave, not to escape, but to carry Aztlan forward." The woman raised her hand, and from the mist, a single white feather drifted into Etzel's palm. It shimmered within a light, warm and light as breath. "When the time comes," the woman whispered, "follow the heron. It knows the way." Etzel woke with tears on her cheeks and the scent of sacred smoke still lingering in the air. The feather was gone. But something had changed inside her. The lake had whispered its secret. Aztlan was not an ending. It was a beginning. And somewhere, beneath the soft silver mist, the journey waited. One twilight, as golden light sank into the lake's still surface, painting it with hues of molten amber and soft violet, Etzel sat beside the water's edge, her bare toes brushing the cool, glistening shore. The reeds swayed in a gentle breeze, their slender green stalks whispering to one another like old friends telling secrets. The lake, as ever, remained silent and watching, calm as a sleeping spirit. In the distance, herons waded with slow elegance, and dragonflies shimmered like living jewels. Etzel had come here every evening since the dream in the Chamber of Light. The whisper of the old woman still echoed in her, and she carried the memory of the feather not in her hand, but in the quiet space behind her ribs, where longing lived. She stared into the water. The surface was still, as though time itself had paused. Slowly, her reflection began to shift. Her eyes widened, breath catching in her throat, not out of fear, but wonder. The water no longer showed her own face. Instead, it revealed the image of a serpent, cold and radiant. Its eyes glowed like twin suns, and its scales shimmered with the deep black of obsidian, laced with ribbons of turquoise and gold. It did not move, but its presence rippled through her. And then, without words, it spoke. Not with language, but with sensation. A feeling spread through her chest like warm rain on stone, a message not given but remembered. Urging, guiding, calling. Each cell blinked, and the serpent dissolved into ripples. But the feeling remained, a quiet stirring beneath her skin, as though something ancient had woken within her. She rose without hesitation, her heart quiet but awake, her steps slow and sure. She turned from the lake and began walking through the tall grass toward the hills that cradled the island's edge. There, carved into the land like a sacred wound, stood the Cave of Whispers, one of the 7 ancient hollows that encircled Aztlan like petals of a sacred flower. Each cave was said to hold a different secret. Some kept the laughter of children long gone. Others guarded the final breaths of elders. But this one sang with echoes of those who had gone before, of those yet to come. Its mouth yawned wide beneath a stone arch twined with flowering vines. The petals seemed to glow faintly in the dark, pulsing like small hearts. As each cell entered, the warm light of the world outside faded, and a soft blue glow began to pulse from within the cave walls. The stone around her shimmered with crystals that looked like frozen drops of sky. The deeper she walked, the more the cave seemed to listen. She paused. Then slowly, reverently, she placed her hand upon the cool surface of the wall. The silence deepened into a hum, a low, resonant vibration that moved through her palm and into her body like music too ancient to be heard with ears alone. Her breath caught. Something stirred within the stone and within her. A memory, not hers, but older. Older than language. Older than names. Woven into the bones of the land. A memory that had waited for her. And then, as if exhaled from the stone itself, a voice came. Soft as breath, warm as dusk, when the stars sing of migration, follow the path of flowers. Let the hummingbird guide you. The words melted into her like morning light into mist. She closed her eyes and let them settle. When the stars sing. She remembered the sky in her dream, spiraling stars, dancing slowly, patiently. Were they already beginning to sing? The path of flowers. Marigolds bloomed in her mind, petals bright and fragrant, forming a trail across a river of time. She saw them lining unseen roads, winding through mountains not yet walked. A living path of light and memory. And the hummingbird. She remembered the feather from her vision, and the tiny beating of wings in the wind. In Aztec lore, the hummingbird was more than just a bird. It was a messenger, a traveler between realms, swift and wise. The soul of a warrior, reborn in light. Each cell lowered her hand from the wall. the humming had ceased. The glow had dimmed. But inside her, the sound still sang. She stepped back into the twilight of the cave, and the air seemed to part for her. Outside, the first stars had begun to appear, small, silver notes in the deepening blue sky. And though it was silent, she could feel the song beginning. A soft vibration in her ribs. A stirring beneath her skin. She was not afraid. The path would not be easy. It would win through mist and memory. It would ask her to leave the only home she'd ever known. But Aztlan was not just a place. It was a promise. She stood at the mouth of the cave, breathing in the night air. Somewhere, far off, she heard the delicate flutter of wings. A single hummingbird, barely a blur in the dusk, hovered near a blossom before vanishing into the shadows. She smiled. The journey was awakening, and she was ready to listen. That night, Itzel dreamed of a sky that bloomed like spring. There was no land, no lake, only the endless curve of night overhead, deep and soft, scattered with starlight. Yet in this celestial field, flowers bloomed. Thousands, millions of glowing marigolds stretched into the horizon, floating where air met the stars, each blossom radiant and golden, like a tiny sun holding its own warm memory. Itzel stood barefoot in the starlit field, the petals warm beneath her feet, and began to walk. The marigolds made no sound, but they seemed to breathe, opening and closing in slow rhythm with her steps. With every movement forward, the world shimmered. The path pulsed gently with energy, as if it recognized her. She followed the trail as it wound gracefully through constellations and nebulae, weaving through cosmic winds. Time felt distant here, forgotten. Even her body was light, she was thought, breath, dream. Eventually, the golden path narrowed and led her to a river suspended in space. It was not a river of water, but something more delicate. Its surface flowed like liquid memory, reflecting not the stars above, but the stars long ago. Celestial patterns she did not recognize. Moons that had long since crumbled. Suns that had already burned their last light. Itzel knelt at the edge and touched the surface. It shimmered beneath her fingers. And then, as naturally as breathing, she stepped into the river. Her feet did not sink. Instead, she floated, lifted by the current, her reflection rippling and shifting, sometimes her child self, sometimes older than she was now, sometimes someone else entirely. As she drifted, figures began to emerge from the current. They came not as people, but as spirits shaped from smoke and moonlight. Some wore feathered headdresses, others bore painted faces, their eyes glowing softly like embers in a gentle fire. There were elders and children, warriors and dancers, poets and midwives, all part of a long, living tapestry. These were the ancestors of her people. The Mexica, born from the caves of Aztlan, who had wandered and built and remembered. They did not speak with mouths, but with song. Soft and ancient, the music drifted over her like mist. It sang of Aztlan, of a time before time, of a journey that had already begun and one that would never end, of sacred mountains and speaking rivers, of memory carried not in stone but in the breath of descendants. Their song curved through the stars, circling her like gentle arms. When the people are ready, the land shall rise again. Aztlan is not lost. It only sleeps in the heart. Itzel felt her chest ache, not from sorrow, but from the beauty of it. From recognition. From love. This was more than a dream. It was a remembering. And it was a calling. The river began to dissolve into golden mist, the marigold path dimming, but still glowing faintly beneath her. The spirits bowed their heads as they faded into the dream's edge, and the last note of their song lingered like incense in the wind. Itzel opened her eyes to the hush of dawn. Her small home was bathed in the soft light of morning, her mother still asleep nearby, the lake beyond the window like a mirror for the rising sky. But something had changed. Her palms tingled. She sat up and looked at her hands. Fine golden dust clung to her skin, shimmering faintly, as if the marigolds had kissed her fingers in parting. No wind had carried it in. No flower had bloomed nearby. She smiled gently. The dream had not been a dream. It had been a message. Aztlan had called her. And now the path had begun. In the quiet hours before dawn, when even the wind held its breath and the stars began to soften into morning's embrace, a sound like silk in motion stirred the air outside Itzel's home. It was not the cry of birds or the rustle of trees, but something finer, quicker, like the hush between heartbeats. Itzel, still cradled in the soft nest of sleep, felt it before she saw it. A whisper of warmth near her cheek. A shimmer of presence. She opened her eyes slowly, as if waking within a dream, and there, just outside her open window, hovered a hummingbird, but not like any she had seen before. Its feathers shimmered with the colors of dawn, fiery orange, ocean blue, violet twilight, and morning gold. Each beat of its wings left trails of light, like thread stitching the veil between dreams and waking. The bird floated closer, utterly silent, and came to rest gently on her shoulder. Itzel did not move. The bird's body was no heavier than a breath. Its tiny talons pressed softly against her skin, as if anchoring her to something beyond sight. And then it looked into her eyes. For a long moment she saw nothing but the bird's iridescent gaze, but within it the deep memory of oceans, volcanoes, roots, and sky. The hummingbird's eyes held the stories of mountains that had not yet risen, of songs that had not yet been sung. It was not just a bird. It was a messenger. With delicate grace, it tilted its beak forward and dropped a single feather into her open palm. The feather was long, elegant, and glowing with the deep emerald green of the sacred Quetzal, a bird known to bridge the world of mortals and gods. Its edges shimmered with silver. Its center seemed to pulse with light. Before each cell could whisper a word of thanks, the hummingbird vanished, carried off in a spiral of wind and golden dust, as if it had never been there at all. But the feather remained, warm, alive, guided by something she did not need to understand. Eatzel rose, dressed in silence, and made her way once more to the Cave of Whispers. The path was lit only by the dim blush of early light, and yet she did not stumble. Her feet moved with the surety of memory. When she reached the cave, something had changed. The entrance no longer yawned in cool shadow, but glowed faintly, as if lit from within. The vines above the arch quivered with unseen music, and the petals of their blossoms opened in her presence, releasing a sweet, unknown fragrance into the morning air. Eatzel stepped inside, and the cave welcomed her. The stone walls, once rough and ancient, now shimmered like obsidian glass. Crystals bloomed from their surface like frozen lightning. And in the space where once she had heard only echoes, there now stretched a corridor of stars. She was no longer in a cave. She was walking a bridge, a path of light between her world and another. The walls of the corridor curved with galaxies, and beneath her feet flowed rivers of memory. She saw moments flickering beside her, her grandmother weaving beside a fire, a child planting seeds in a field of corn, a warrior whispering to the wind. Time folded here, and sang. Then, in a great widening of space, she saw it all. Not just Aztlan, but every land to come. Valleys bathed in golden light. Mountains wrapped in cloud and thunder. Lakes so still they reflected the soul. Great cities rising from stone and song, temples carved from the dreams of suns, marketplaces blooming with laughter and color. And she saw the people, her people, walking, singing, planting, remembering, carrying stories in their voices, carrying Aztlan in their hearts. They were not alone. Every step they took, flowers bloomed. Every path they followed, stars gathered. The journey had not ended. It had only begun. And in her palm, the Quetzal feather glowed softly, like a key. Itzel closed her eyes. The bridge would remain. The memory would return. And the song of Aztlan would echo again and again in every footstep taken in love. In her final dream, Itzel stood once more on the familiar shore of Aztlan, the island of mist and memory. The lake was still, the sky deep violet, and a hush held the world in gentle suspension like a breath waiting to be exhaled. The mist that usually draped the island like a veil began to lift. Slowly, softly, it unraveled itself from the trees, the stones, the water. It did not retreat, but transformed. The silver fog shimmered into light, and the island began to glow as though awakening from its own long dream. But what Itzel saw then was not only the island. She saw a mirror. Aztlan reflected back not only her image, but her essence. Not as a young girl or a dream seer, but as she truly was. She saw herself made of earth and star, woven from spirit and water, her soul painted in the colors of corn, obsidian, and sky. Her eyes shone with the light of suns not yet born. Her heartbeat echoed with the pulse of the land, steady and ancient, like the first drum carved by wind and time. She was not separate from Aztlan. She was Aztlan. Its breath, its dream, its journey. And in that shimmering moment, she understood Aztlan was not only a place. It was a song, a memory, a seed. A sacred truth tucked inside every step her people would one day take across mountains, across centuries. It was the golden thread in every story told around firelight, the rhythm in every dance beneath the moon, the breath in every prayer offered to the dawn. Aztlan had not been lost. It had been carried forward within the hearts of those who remembered. It lived in the cornfields and temples, in lullabies and footprints, in silence and in song. The vision around her shifted again, not vanishing, but flowing into the world like water finding its path. She saw the 7 caves from which her people had once emerged, each now glowing with warm light. The ancestors stood at their mouths, watching her with eyes of stars, nodding once in solemn joy. She turned to look across the lake, and saw the trail of marigolds still glowing faintly across the sky, stretching toward the horizon, eternal and patient. She knew then that the journey was not finished. It never truly ended. For every child born carried a piece of Aztlan in their soul. For every dream remembered, the island rose again. For every step taken in hope, the mists parted. As the first light of morning reached gently across the lake, brushing the reeds and kissing the water with gold, Itzel felt herself returning, not leaving, but bringing something back. The dream was no longer behind her. It walked beside her. She stood at the water's edge, her toes touching the surface that now reflected sky and memory both. The breeze carried the scent of cacao blossoms and distant rain. And in that sacred stillness, she closed her eyes and whispered into the soft air, "We are still walking." And the dream walks with us. The feather in her hand shimmered once more, and the world exhaled.